All right, so Scott says he's going to look more like me, and that's not a bad thing. It's really not true that you can do everything. It's only true if you have a nearly perfect wife, which I do, which is really awesome. One of the greatest experiences I had here at BYU as a student was meeting my wife. And so really thrilled to be back here where it all started for us. By the time we got out of here, we already had 2 children and 1 on the way. So it was quite an experience being here as a student and going through life at the same time trying to learn. I'm really excited to be back here. I really was reaching out to see if there was any way other than money I could give back to BYU. And when I met Scott and had a conversation with Scott, I realized there's so much more than just money that I can do here, that I can give back and help you. And that's very exciting for me. I'm really thrilled to be here, and I hope to be involved in a lot with the Rollins Center over the next several years to see what I can do to support folks like you who really want to make a difference and you want to do your own thing. There are a lot of benefits to doing your own thing. So I just want to start with that, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my business and some of the mistakes we've made, maybe some of the struggles that we've had, and how we overcame some of those difficulties. First, being an entrepreneur is very exciting. It's also very risky, but it has great benefits. One of the benefits is you can work 12-hour days and nobody's getting on your back for overtime. You can just do it. One of the other benefits is you work for yourself, which really means you're working for all of your customers, and they're more demanding than an employer is, so they may keep you up at all hours of the night, but still, you work for yourself, which is also kind of cool. I think that one of the best parts of being an entrepreneur is you get to choose who you want to work with. So instead of you're hired by somebody else and you get to work with whoever they chose, you get to work with whoever you choose. And that really is a huge benefit. I'll tell you personally, when I started my computer career, the first thing I did was I looked at all my brothers and sisters and friends and said, okay, do they have the skills I'm looking for to fill the roles with my computer career? And many of my brothers and sisters came to work for my computer career. And for me, that was a huge blessing. They came from all over the United States, some of them from here in the state of Utah, and moved their families back to North Carolina to join me in that adventure. That was just extremely exciting for me. One of the other blessings of being an entrepreneur is I also get to hire my children. And that's pretty cool. All 8 of my children or their spouses have worked with my computer career or still do work with my computer career, and that's been a huge blessing. But frankly, one of the best things about being an entrepreneur is enjoying the success of your labors. And I mean, working for somebody else and having success is very gratifying. Working for yourself and being successful, a lot more gratifying. And not only that, you're not filling somebody else's dreams and helping them accomplish their dreams. You're achieving your own. And there's a lot to be said for being able to go out and on a daily basis be out there working on your own dream and finding success in your own dream. One of the wonderful things about going to Disney World, and we're big Disney fans. We love Disney. So we go down, my wife and I go down probably 2 or 3 times a year to Disney World. And I love the fireworks at the end, and they have this big display thing they do up on the castle. But what I always walk away from that when I walk away from there, what I always feel is dreams really do come true. They talk about that all the time at Disney, that dreams really do come true. And I feel like they do when I leave Disney World, that dreams really do come true. Well, being an entrepreneur is a chance for you to make your dreams come true. And that's extremely exciting. Of course, there are also great financial benefits to being an entrepreneur. There also can be some real negatives financially if you fail, right? Some people do. But still, the financial benefits are huge. People used to ask me all the time, what are your hobbies? And I would tell them, whatever my kids are doing, because I had 8 of them, right? So we were really, really busy. So I didn't really have my own hobby. But now that the children are all gone and out at school and raising their own families, I thought, well, what do I want to do? And what my wife and I have come up with is we travel. And so, we've been to Hawaii and to Europe a couple of times, and I couldn't do all of that if it wasn't for the financial blessing of having been an entrepreneur, to have the freedom, really, to do what I want to do. It's like, I went to the football game on Saturday night up in Logan. That was awesome. In fact, I've caught all of the football games for BYU so far this year, and I live in North Carolina. So, it's that financial blessing of being an entrepreneur that allows me to do things like that. So I'm really thrilled with that. So let me talk a little bit about being an entrepreneur. And I want to start with an experience I had many years ago that I think kind of laid the foundation for me on what the most important things were for me to be successful going forward and be successful as an entrepreneur starting my own school. I was taking a computer class. I was working for this business, and they had their own IT training department, and they allowed their employees to take computer training depending on what your job was and whether it would be of benefit to them in your job. So I was taking one of these classes, and the classes generally ran from 8 to 5 for 3 to 5 weeks, a 3 to 5 week period. And I'm kind of one of those squirrely guys. Squirrel? I'm one of those. I get distracted very, very easily. So I sat right up in front because I figured there's nothing between me and the instructor, no distractions. I'll learn that way. Well, after that first day of class, I heard my name called by somebody behind me. I didn't know the folks that were in that classroom. And I turned around and I realized there's a guy in there taking this computer class who was blind. Now, he could see things if you held them right up to his face like this, and that's how close it had to be for him to be able to see anything. Can you imagine taking a computer class and you have to be that close to your monitor to see anything? And not only did he have to be that close, the monitor was huge. Now, back in those days, we had CRTs. You guys are probably too young to even know what those were. But those monitors were gigantic boxes that sat on your desk, and they were huge and heavy. But they were really, really big. Well, his was even bigger. And that's how I realized he was blind. He could only display on his monitor 1/4 of a screen at a time. So what I saw on my monitor, he could only see 1/4 of it on this monitor, blown up really big, and he's looking at it like this, trying to follow what the instructor was trying to teach. Very, very difficult. Big challenge, big obstacle. So he called me. I went back to him. He said, look, it sounds like you really know what you're doing. Would you mind coming in an hour early every day and just helping me through this class? I said, sure, that's not a big deal. I can do that. And so that's what we did. Every day he came to he came to the class. He did his very best to try to keep up and figure out what the instructor was trying to teach. And then he would go home and study all evening. He'd come in the next morning and expect me to tutor him on whatever he was still missing. But remember, I just learned what I was supposed to tutor the day before. So I tell you, that's probably the best educational experience I've ever had, because I had no idea what he was going to need. And so I had to learn everything that was taught from 8 to 5 that day. So the next day, when he came in with his questions, I could tutor him on what I just learned the day before. One morning I showed up, and there was a note. Now remember, this was before cell phones. So he had called in and said, hey, would you give him a note when he gets there? Tell him I'm not going to be there today. So here I was an hour early before class started, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So there was a strip mall across the street, and I figured, yeah, I could go over there and just fool around and have a good time. But it occurred to me that the computers we were using in that classroom were connected to their database of knowledge. This is before the internet where you can go out and learn anything you want anywhere, right? And I thought, this is my chance to study stuff I'm not going to learn in this class. And so I took that hour just looking through the menus. That looked interesting. And I studied it for 10 or 15 minutes. And then I looked for something else, studied that for 10 or 15 minutes. And that's how I spent my hour, was just poking around, learning something I knew I wasn't going to learn in that class. It's finally time for the class to start. In came this woman. She said, hey, I'm your substitute. Your instructor's sick. And she started the class in a really weird way. I don't know if she was trying to show us how dumb we were or how smart she was. But she started by asking us questions she knew we wouldn't have the answer to. She knew we were not learning in that class. So guess what the first question was? Something I just barely studied while I was waiting for class to start. And so I was able to raise my hand and answer the question. 4 straight questions were about subjects I just barely studied while I was waiting for class to start, and I was able to answer them all. She finally gave up and went and taught the class. I'm going to come back to that. Later on, I was taking another class, same place, different class, of course. I made a huge mistake. I sat all the way in the back. A lot of distractions between the back of the classroom and the front. And sure enough, I was sitting in class, I was looking right at the instructor, but not hearing a word he was saying. Instead, what I was thinking was, this guy's having a lot of fun teaching this class. If I had his job, I'd be on stage every day. And I love being on stage. So I thought, the next time they have an opening for a trainer in that department, I'm going to get that job. Sure enough, very soon thereafter, out came this notice that they had an opening for a trainer in their IT training department. And I got very excited. I opened up the message to see what the qualifications were they were looking for. And I didn't match one of them. Not one. And I thought, oh man, you know what? Later, I'll meet some of these. And so I figured, I'm going to put my resume in. I'm going to put my application in for that job because, well, 2 reasons really. If I didn't put it in, who told me no? Anybody? Me. Why would I tell myself no for something I want, right? That doesn't make any sense. So I figured I'm not turning it down. I'm going to go ahead and apply anyway. But I also felt like the next time, when I do meet some of those qualifications and I apply a second time, they might remember my name. They might not remember why they remember my name, but they might remember my name. And that might give me a little bit of an edge. So that's what I did. I applied. And I got an interview, which totally shocked me. So the day of the interview, I went to the director's office. I knocked on the door, and I heard a come in. I opened the door, and guess who's sitting there? The woman, the substitute teacher. I had no idea she was the director for the department. She wasn't even facing the door, and she turned around, she looked up at me, and she said, "You are the know-it-all." Made an impression, right? And the next question will tell you a lot. The next question she asked was, do you have any training experience? What does that tell you? She never looked at my resume. She never looked at the application, or she would know I didn't have any because I didn't match any of the qualifications that they were looking for. She obviously just gave interviews to everybody that applied and never did look at the resume or the application. But she said, do you have any training experience? I said, no, I don't have any training experience. She said, wait a minute. Aren't you the one that helped that blind guy? I don't know if that's politically correct today or not, but back then it was fine. You never know. Aren't you the one that helped that blind guy? I said, well, yeah, I helped him. She said, no, you don't understand. He took that class like 4 or 5 times, but he passed it because of you. You got the job. No interview. She never did look at my lack of qualifications. It was just, you're the know-it-all. You helped the blind guy. You got the job. Scared me to death. I really wasn't ready for that job. And there was no, and here's how you do the job. She just gave me a stack of books, said, here you go. You start on this date. Scared me to death. So I went home. I studied really hard. So when I got in front of that first class on that first day, I had at least 1 day's worth of material I could teach. But I really knew at the end of that day, I found my passion. I found what I wanted to do. I wanted to be on stage. That's part of it. It really is. I wanted to be on stage. But I wanted to be on stage teaching things that would change people's lives. And it's been an amazing career. I will tell you, I was blessed over and over and over again to have opportunities in this industry, in the computer training industry, that I never deserved. And the Lord just laid them in my lap, but I took advantage of them. what a blessing that has been for me. Now, I tell you that experience I had for several reasons. There are certain things I want you to get from what I just explained, what I just experienced, I did experience. First, I promise you, you give acts of service, you'll be blessed way more than you deserve. And they don't have to be related to your job. It doesn't matter what the service is or who they're to. If you just serve other people in small ways, I don't care if it's your brother you're serving or your parents or your children, you will be blessed way more than you deserve for those little acts of service. So I encourage you to put that to the test. Don't just look at what you want. Look at the people around you and what kind of impact you're having on them. Is it positive? Then you're serving. Another thing I want you to get out of what I experienced, and I hope this will truly help you as young entrepreneurs. Almost everybody has one of these. It's the biggest waste of time ever invented. Seriously, it really is. You have an hour to kill, what do? You kill it, right? I mean, you really do. You spend an hour looking at stupid cat videos or, what is that, tweeting or Facebook messaging or, I don't know, whatever, playing games, whatever those things are that you do on your phone that don't add one iota to your future. They really don't. They're a big waste of time. I believe as a generation, and when I say generation, I mean all of us who are using technology. You're obviously a different generation than I am. But I think this generation probably wastes more time than any generation ever. And it's because of technology that puts a waste of time right at our fingertips. Greatest educational tool ever invented. No matter where you are, as long as you have Verizon, no matter where you are, you can learn anything you want. You have a 10-minute bus ride, you can add 10 minutes of knowledge to your future if you want to. You have an hour to kill, you don't have to kill it. You can learn something that's going to add to your future. It's right at your fingertips. So what is the difference between the greatest educational tool ever invented and the biggest waste of time ever invented? How you use it. And of course, this represents all of our technology today, not just phones. It's how you use it. I would recommend to you, while you're a student, while you're building your own enterprise, this needs to be the greatest educational tool ever invented. You need to stop wasting the time that you waste today. If you are, you have to catch these 3 TV series every week, stop. You don't. You don't have to do that. I tell you, in our school, you know who comes to our school better prepared to be a student than any others? Gamers. Because gamers already know more about computers than anybody else. You know who tend to be the worst students? Gamers. Because they're addicted to the game. When they should be getting a really good night's rest so the next day they can really hit it, they're up until the middle of the night sometime playing games. They don't get the rest that they really need to get. They waste more time because of the addiction to the game. But you know what? We all have some kind of addiction probably. Whether that addiction is a TV show or some kind of game we play or whatever it is, we could all do better. I'm just recommending, especially when you're a student and when you're a young entrepreneur, greatest educational tool ever invented. That needs to be you. All right. Another thing I want you to get out of that experience that I had. Who said no? Well, nobody did, but I wasn't going to do it. If you want something, if you want to build something, go for it. Build it. If you're an entrepreneur, you're born to take risks. If you're not comfortable with taking risks, you probably shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Okay? But if you are born to take risks, go for it. Don't let somebody else tell you no. If you entered into that contest that we judged here a few weeks ago and you didn't make the top 10, is that going to stop you? I hope not. Just because somebody said no doesn't mean you should stop. Keep going. Keep striving to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Another thing I want you to get from that experience, every one of you will experience obstacles. Even if you're not going to create your own business or you're not going to create your own product, you will face obstacles in your life. Obstacles are simply things to get over, around, or through. Don't let obstacles stop you. Just think of the blind guy taking that computer class. He struggled. He went through it 4 or 5 times. But he finally asked somebody else to give him the hand he needed, and he was successful. He didn't stop. He kept going until he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. I recommend that to you. Don't stop. Don't let obstacles prevent you from achieving your dream, what you want to accomplish. Let me share with you a few things, and I hope that you take that seriously. To me, that was a great experience. It taught me a lot. It prepared me, I think, to be an entrepreneur. Let me share with you, when in meeting with Scott, I talked to him about participating, and he asked me, we were talking about my computer career, my school, and he asked me, what are the biggest accomplishments that you've had over the last year? And I know when he asked the question, he was thinking about my company. But the first thing that popped into my head when he asked the question was, I had my 40th anniversary. That was an awesome thing, right? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my sweetheart's right over here. She's a really good-looking one right there. But that was the first thing that popped into my head. The second thing that popped into my head was my 24-year-old son qualified to donate his kidney. That was awesome. And the next thing that popped into my head was my 21-year-old daughter got it. She got the kidney. And that was really, really cool. So, big year. Now, of course, there were some big things that happened with my computer career as well. One of the things that I'm most proud of with our organization over this last year is we achieved, and y'all probably have heard of military friendly. There is a designation that companies can obtain that says you're military friendly. There are, frankly, I don't remember what they all are, but I think there are 7 or 8 of them, designations military friendly. My company achieved all of them, all of the military friendly designations. That's huge. There are fewer than 20 corporations in the entire United States that get them all, and we were one of them. So to me, that's a big deal. Another thing that we accomplished this year is we passed $120 million in revenue this year. That was a big milestone for us. But it hasn't been easy. Let me tell you some of the struggles we've had with my computer career. Very early in the beginning, opening a school is probably the most difficult business you can start. Would you tell me when I have 10 minutes left, Scott?
Yeah, you got 20.
Thank you. It's probably one of the most difficult businesses you can start. If you think about it, how do you finance your schooling? Well, most of y'all are going to get student loans. You're going to get grants, right? The Pell grants. And then you're going to have to make up the difference somehow. Maybe you're going to get a loan. Maybe you're going to work while you're in school to pay the difference. When you first start a school, you can't accept those kinds of funds from your students. They have to get personal loans to go to school or completely pay it on their own. We charged $25,000 back then. We actually charge less today than we charged 12 years ago. But back then, they had to get personal loans in order to go to school. And that's because you can't apply to be accredited. For us, we couldn't apply until we were about 3 years into it before we could even apply. And then once you apply, you only have a year. You have about a year before you actually get accredited. And then you apply to receive Title IV funds for your students. And that takes anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half, depending on who's working your case. It takes a long time. So we had to survive by students who just got personal loans to come to school. That by itself is fairly difficult, but we were very successful at it in that first 10 months. And then there we were, October of 2008, and the credit market crashed. Think about it. People who are trying to get a $25,000 personal loan with a 650 credit score, they could do that back then. When the credit market crashed, all of a sudden they had to have a 770 credit score. There aren't a whole lot of those out there that could do that. So it made it very difficult for us. One of the things that helped us, there were several things that helped us survive those days. We could have been out of business very quickly. In fact, the timing was probably as bad as it could get. I was down in Dallas at the time that the credit market crashed. The very next day, I was supposed to sign a multi-million-dollar lease on our second campus. And all over the news, all day, credit market crashed, all these horrible things that were now going to happen because of the credit market crash. My son-in-law, who helped me start my computer career, was with me, and that's what we were talking about. What are we going to do? We're going to be lucky if we can survive a credit market crash like that, considering all of our students have to get personal loans. And here we were the next day going to enter into a multi-million-dollar lease. What do we do? So we debated what the pros and cons were. There were a lot of cons. But it really became a matter of prayer. Prayed about it a lot. Made the decision to go forward and sign the lease anyway. Prayed about it again and felt a lot of peace. And so we went ahead and did it, signed the lease. And I tell you what, that's probably one of the things that actually saved us in a time of real trial. One of the things that helped us at that period was I had probably the smartest guy I know working with me, and that was my son-in-law, Bill. Today, he's off doing his own thing, and extremely successful at it. But just to give you an idea how smart this guy is, we were on a cruise together, and they had a whole bunch of people all in one place, and we had a contest. Said, okay, anybody who believes the answer to this question is this, stand over here. Anybody who believes it's this, stand over there. Everybody stood over there except for Bill. He stood over there, and he was the only one that was right. But I had him, and like I said, I think he's probably the smartest guy I know. He was also amazing when it came to brainstorming. When you have to brainstorm, you need somebody who's willing to just spit out anything that comes in their head. And he's one of those. So we got together, what are we going to do? And he just started brainstorming, and he spit all this stuff out. And then okay, well, that's illegal, and that's unethical. Narrow it down, right? And then we took those and figured out, okay, what in here will help us survive in this situation? And we made those changes. One of the things that was great about our business is we change on a dime. We're prepared at any moment to make a change that can be effective immediately. And so we did that. We came up with what he came up with, narrowed it down, figured out what we needed to do to change, and then we changed immediately. And not only did we survive, we flourished at a time that we should have been driven out of business because of that failure in the credit market. So I would recommend to you, there are a few things that you can do. One, surround yourself with really smart people. If you are actually studying entrepreneurship here, you're becoming a jack of all trades. You know, you're not learning to be an accountant, but you're learning some accounting. You're not learning to do marketing, but you're learning some marketing. You're really becoming well-rounded. What you need to do as an entrepreneur is then hire masters of one. Hire that guy that's the master at marketing. Hire that guy that's the master at all these different things you're going to need as an enterprise. Those really smart people who are masters in their field can help you in those times of struggle and help you flourish and make what your dreams really come true. Let me share with you another thing that was very difficult for us as a company, and that's growth. And that's a funny thing, because when you're a new entrepreneur, what do you want to do? Grow, right? That's what you want to do. Last year, we were the 12th fastest growing company in the state of North Carolina. We were on the Forbes 5,000 fastest growing companies in the United States. We made that list for the second year in a row, which is very unusual because we're growing really fast. One of the things we experienced during this growth, we had technology that wasn't ready to expand. It wasn't capable of expanding the way we needed the technology to expand. We also didn't do well enough at preparing our managers, so they were prepared for our personnel growth. We also didn't really plan enough for the amount of time it takes for a new employee to be extremely productive. All of those things, as we really blew up and we started growing a lot, hurt us. And so we had to take a step back and modify our plans. Being flexible is really important. So when you have goals, you have plans, those goals are probably going to change somewhere along the line. Those plans are probably going to change. You just need to be aware enough to identify when they do need to change. And so we recognized that. So we stopped growing quite as quickly, and we changed our technology. We've implemented new software that will allow us that ability to expand. I actually changed the entire structure of the company so that our leadership could expand, our management could expand. But there are a lot of things you should be prepared for before you expand that we really weren't ready for. We didn't plan well enough for the expansion. But we learned our lesson, so we can go back and make those changes so we could expand again. And we're doing great. The expansion is wonderful. One of the things that was very difficult, how much time do I have? Thank you. One of the things that was really difficult was making sure we maintained our culture. We have a very strong culture within my computer career. One of them is, you might call us a faith-based organization. And all that means is we give opportunities for people to join us in prayer if they want to. So every Monday afternoon, all of our employees, no matter where they are around the country, they can dial in to our bridge line and join us in saying a prayer. And then people just volunteer and take turns saying a prayer. They don't have to be of any particular faith. I think that's important. It's important for who we are, that we exercise that faith, because if it wasn't for God, if it wasn't for Jesus Christ and the Holy Ghost, we would have been out of business a long time ago. The guidance they give, the inspiration they have given, the revelations that they've given have helped me and has helped us as an organization to survive and thrive under very difficult circumstances. We have 4 core values as an organization. One of them is love. Every decision we make as a corporation, we have to look at it and say, does it express love in some way to our customers, which could be our employees, it could be our potential students, it could be our students. Does it express love? Customer first. Our customers, obviously our potential students, our alumni, and our employees. Always put the customer first. Excellence. If we enter into something, we have to be able to do it with excellence, otherwise we don't do it. We actually had another one that we took off. At one point, we were looking at our core values. We originally had profitability on there because we figured, hey, if we're not profitable, the rest of them don't matter, right? So we had that on there. We eventually took that off because we realized we were making decisions knowing they weren't going to be profitable. I'll give you an example. We sponsor the POW MIA Freedom Car. It's a race car. We sponsor them. It's fairly expensive to do. We don't get a return on that investment. But we do it because we want to educate today's youth about POW and MIA. Because so many of our youth have no idea what those acronyms mean. Prisoner of war, missing in action. It's still an important thing to remember. So we sponsor them to educate today's youth about prisoner of war and missing in action. So can you include profitability as a core value if you make decisions that go against your core value? You can't. So we took it off. I feel like I missed one.
Yeah, we have 3.
The other one is ethical. Have to be ethical in everything we do. One of the things we said in the very beginning when I first started this school, and we were meeting as a small group back then, was we'll never do anything that's illegal, but even if it's legal, if it's not ethical, we won't do it. So have to be ethical in everything that we do. Sticking to those core values and making sure that every decision we make fits within those parameters makes a huge difference in how we operate. Trying to make sure our employees make all of their decisions based on those 4 core values is difficult. Especially, like Scott said, when you have multiple places across the country. We have 7 campuses across the country, and then we have 3 different offices across the country as well. And we want every single employee to remember what our core values are and to make all of their decisions based on those. That's a very difficult challenge, particularly when we're growing the way that we are. For example, we put a campus here, an enrollment office here in Provo. In order to make sure our culture was built into this facility, I actually asked one of my daughters to come out here and open this facility and run it, because she's a huge, shining example of all 4 core values. And she instills those in all of the new employees that we hire here to make sure that they understand whatever the decisions they're making have to reflect those 4 core values, or don't make them. One more thing I'll mention about that. Have you ever made a decision when you felt like you were, in a gray area? You probably have, right? You hear that quite a bit. Well, that's kind of a gray area. Let me tell you what I think about gray areas and how they're going to affect you in your future and in your business. Picture, if you will, in your mind, a room over here that's pitch dark, has no source of light. Over here, you have another room filled with light. In fact, there's a light right above the doorway. There's a doorway in between these 2 rooms. There's no door, but there's a doorway. Right above the doorway, there's a bright light that just illuminates the entire room. Okay, so you have that room filled with light. You have the room over here, no source of light. Where's the gray area? Anybody? Where's the gray area? Remember, there's a doorway between the 2, right? That's the gray area right here. It's on this side of the door, because a little bit of that light bleeds into that dark room. It's not lit, it just bleeds in a little bit. You're in the gray area right here. Step on the other side of the door, where are you? Completely bathed in light. So if you're in the gray area, what room are you in? The room with no light. You're in the dark room. If you're facing into the room, you can't see a thing. The only way you can see anything if you're standing in the gray area, if you're looking through the door and you're looking into the lit room. So I tell my employees, don't ever make a decision if you're in the gray area. If that decision you think might be in the gray area, it's in the wrong room. Only make decisions when you're in the room that's fully lit, because those decisions are the ones you can be safe with. They are the ones that you can receive inspiration about, that you can be guided in, that will make a huge positive difference. I really appreciate the chance that the Rollins Center has given me to come here and participate. I hope that something I said helps some of you in your future. The most important thing I hope you'll take away from this is have a positive attitude about your obstacles and stay close to the Lord. If you're doing something that you really believe in, that you can really sink your whole heart and soul into, and then you follow promptings, you seek revelation, you keep a positive attitude, overcome your obstacles, and don't let them stop you, you'll achieve. And I look forward to hearing all about it. Thank you so much. Thank you.